forget your people also and your father's house. For the king has desired your beauty, for he is your Lord, worship him. But this psalm was not just talking about Saint Mary and how she listened to Archangel Gabriel and how she responded to his message. It's also for every one of us. Listen, O daughter. Listen, my son. But the question, do we really listen to God's voice every day in our life? I personally do not listen to God a lot of the time. Many days, sometimes for a few months. Do I really feel that He is talking to me and telling me where to go, what to do or not? Listen, O daughter, to my voice. Before I go further, I just want to play a little YouTube video. It was about a little boy. It's pretty funny, but it kind of has a very powerful message.
Listen to me. Like I do this all the time. And if I go out at the house or the door, Matthew has his toys, and then Matthew has all his toys.
Okay, but I have to yell at you guys.
Okay, Linda, listen.
Okay, what?
Like everything they do at this house, you can't trust everything at Grandma's house.
Okay.
Okay, then what?
Then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me.
You're not listening. I said no cupcakes. And you try to get cupcakes and you try to ask Grandma.
Linda,
didn't you?
Linda, lick it.
He's your little pop-ups, but he doesn't listen.
But Linda, honey, look at this. Right now, they can't do anything if we can't get everything out of the wall.
I'm done arguing with you.
Linda, I'm done arguing with you.
There was another video too.
Pretty well every town in Canada has one, a railway line shortcut that gets you across the tracks. Pedestrians use them every day. The trains are big and loud. They're hard to miss, except when people are distracted by loud music. Now the push is on to educate Canadians about the dangers that people face crossing railway tracks after a third person in the past week was killed. Mike Drolet reports.
The train's horn and whistle blew, its brakes screeched. The 27-year-old Chilean man was taking a shortcut home from work along Banff's rail line while listening to music through his headphones. He didn't hear the train. He was pronounced dead in hospital.
Eduardo is a very caring, passionate guy. He's a lovable person. He's a friendly person. And it's a tough loss for us.
As startling a story as it is, it would be more so if it hadn't happened twice last week. A 16-year-old teen died at a railway crossing in Oshawa, Ontario, apparently distracted by texting and loud music. And in Leduc, Alberta, a 19-year-old died in similar fashion, again distracted by loud music. It's not hard to find someone wearing giant noise-canceling headphones these days. This teen, like so many others, wears them all the time. And when he listens to music, he tunes out the rest of the world.
I'll be like switching through my music too, and I'll just have it really loud and I'm not paying attention.
It's brought a new dimension to Dan DeTota's work, whose group Operation Lifesaver educates Canadians about the dangers of railway crossings.
My concern is that a lot of people are looking at this and saying, oh, poor fellow, or poor individual, poor family. I mean, that'll never happen to me. That's the wrong concept.
Whenever Gary Suyuki sells a pair of these headphones, he gives a bit of free advice. Pay attention, because he knows how good they are.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can read your lips, but I can't hear you.
Some of the higher end headphones advertise 94%. Even headphones with 60%, you would not hear the outgoing traffic. You wouldn't hear a horn beep. You might hear a train, but you may not.
The message is loud and clear. Don't let distractions turn into avoidable deaths. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
So, in the first video, what was wrong with the little boy? Was he listening to his mom? Why not? What was he doing? He was talking all the time. Exactly. Now in the second video, why did this guy die? Because he was not listening. Why wasn't he listening? He had the headphones. Was the train horn loud and clear? But he still didn't listen, right? Because why? He had his headphones on. And that's the message that we want to talk about today. In Isaiah chapter 55, verse 3, listen carefully to me and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance. The problem is not that God is not talking. The problem is we are not listening. In Isaiah, he said, if you listen to my word, it's as if you had a really good meal, a very satisfying meal. If you listen to my voice, you're going to be delighted. You're going to be happy. How many times when we struggling with or confused about making a decision, then we hear God's voice and hey, maybe you should go that way, or God clears a certain path for you. Or maybe sometimes when you're so stressed and discouraged, then you hear that verse that's so comforting and supporting and upholds you, then you feel oh my God, this verse is for me. And then you feel so special. Oh, God really, really thinks about me, and He's delivering those verses to me in person? Does God, the Creator, cares about me in person? Does He know me by name? When we listen to God's voice, we are delighted. We get that personal experience. How many times if you read the verse and you feel this is all talking about you, you feel you're in a different planet. The whole world, everyone could be talking about something different, but you're so focused on that verse. We are living with God, but are we delighted with the life of God or not? If we are listening to His voice, if we talk to Him as a friend, yes, we're going to be very delighted. And that's what Isaiah said, let your soul delight in abundance. In the Old Testament, we read a lot that God was talking to the prophets like Moses and Abraham. And there are so many times where it says, God said, go there, do this. But not every single time God had to appear physically for Moses and Abraham so that He would see them and tell them what to do. No. It was just said, God said. But they had sensitive ears. They had sensitive ears to recognize God's voice and go by it. They were delighted by the life with God. They were so happy. And God wants every one of us to have the same relationship with Him. The same experience that Moses and Abraham had, He wants every one of us to have it. He wants us to be friends with Him. It says about Enoch and Noah that they were walking with God. And if you're walking with someone, what are you going to do? You can be non-stop talking and non-stop listening to Him. If you're really walking with God as a friend, we're going to be hearing His voice all the time. And then we're going to feel so special. God really wants to talk to us. And sometimes, if we don't hear, He repeats the message. And that's what I did with that little boy on the side of the screen. He was in the temple, he was sleeping, and then he heard that voice, Samuel, Samuel. He didn't recognize it first. He went to the priest oh, just go and sleep, you're dreaming. Second time, oh, you're dreaming. The third time, the priest told him, oh, it's God talking to you. Tell him, speak, O Lord, for your servant is hearing or hears. So can we tell God, speak because your servant is listening? Or no, or we're so distracted. There's so many things. We have big headphones in our ears that we cannot hear anything, even that loud and clear train horn that's about to kill us and run us over. We can hear God's messages through many ways. Sometimes it's an inner message, something that comes out of your own heart. You wake up from sleep, and there's some urge hey, go and read the Bible. Let's pray today. Go to the church. How about you go to that meeting? How about you read today, dedicate certain time for Christ? Where's that urge coming from? That's God's voice speaking into your heart, telling you what to do, and saying you are special. I care about you, and I want to talk to you. I want to be friends with you. That's one way. I heard a story one time in a sermon that there was someone driving on the highway, and then he was listening to a sermon. But then he felt that everything that the priest or the priest that's saying in the sermon is all about him. He didn't feel that the priest is just giving a sermon. He felt that God is talking through the priest to him through the sermon. He pulled over on the side, and I couldn't keep driving. I had to pull over on the side so I can focus and listen carefully to the sermon, because every single word was directed for me. Do we have this connection with God or not? Sometimes He talks through certain situations. A famous story is about a rich guy. That rich guy had a big fight with his brother, with his older brother, because they had a big inheritance, they had a big sum of money, but then his big brother is like, you know what? You're too young, I'm not going to give you all the money. Let me just take care of the money first, and when you grow up, I'll give you your share. So that little brother was so upset. What? You know what? I'm going to go and make a police report, I'm going to go to the judge, I'm going to put you to trial, I'm going to put you to jail. And then on his way out, he saw a funeral, and people are carrying a coffin of a very, very, very rich billionaire. Then he asked, look, what happened? Oh, he just died yesterday from a heart attack or something. Then he realized his money did not help him to live longer or take care of him. His money didn't do anything for him. Then he thought about it, like, maybe I shouldn't fight with my brother then. What am I fighting for? Why am I going to put him for jail? For money? That's not going to do anything to me? You know what? I'm going to live with God. And this was St. Paul, the hermit. He went to the desert, he sold everything, he left everything for his brother, and he just lived the rest of his life with God. He lived 90 years without seeing the face of a man. How can you live that long without seeing the face of a man? Well, you can do it only on one condition. If you're seeing God and you're talking to God and listening to His voice. Sometimes God sends us messages through a person. There was another rich guy on the other side of the picture. This rich guy wanted to live with God. So he would go out next to the riverbanks and start to pray to God. But then one time, he saw like a woman bathing, and he went to her, it's like, why are you bathing over here? Can't you see I'm worshiping God, I'm trying to pray, and you're distracting me? Come on. So are you really a man of God? Do you really want to worship God? Go into the deserts. Then he took this as a message from God. He took this as the voice of God. So he packed his stuff and went into the wilderness, all the way inside, so no one would distract him. This person was St. Anthony. And he became the first monk of the whole world, or the father of all the monks all over the whole world. He had those sensitive ears. He felt that everything that's happening in his life was a message from God. Sometimes we hear God's voice in the readings. How many of us feel that every reading is just for Him? How many of us take a personal message from the readings of the liturgy, or from the sermon, or maybe sometimes, or from Abuna's prayers? We feel, lift up your hearts. Oh, this is for me. My heart is so entangled and so chained down to the earth. Do we take like a word or two that we ponder on them and we feel this is God's message for me or not? St. Anthony, that rich guy on the far right corner, he walked to the church one time, just like every one of us. Then he heard the Bible saying, if you want to live with God, go and sell what you have and follow me. He didn't think, oh, Jesus was just talking to the Jews in the Old Testament. That's not how he thought about it. He's like, oh no, Jesus is talking to me personally. This is what God wants for me. He wants me to sell what I have so I can follow Him. So what did he do? He sold all of his possessions and he went to the desert and became the monk. So what do you do when you can't hear someone? What do you do? What do you do? No, what if you're talking to your friend and you can't hear him? What would you do? Exactly, you would do this. If you can't hear someone, you're going to get closer and lend him your ears or ask him to raise his voice. The problem, as we saw, that God is not talking, it's we are not listening. And that's why the psalm tells us, incline your ear. If you can't hear God's voice, incline your ear. Come closer. And in Isaiah it says, incline your ear and come to me. Come closer to God and ask Him to raise His voice and listen to His voice. But what does that mean? It means that if you really want to listen to God's voice, you have to have a regular Bible reading every day. You have to pay attention to the readings, not be distracted by everything. You have to really focus on every word that's being read and think about it as a personal message to me. Incline your ear. But the biggest problem, once Satan feels you're getting closer to God and you're listening to His voice and you're starting to have a very happy life with Christ, he gets upset. And his mission is to prevent you. Let's cut this off. You know what? I'm going to take you away. I'm going to distract you. I'm going to distract you with your phone, with your games, with your friends, with your jobs, with your children, with your career, with everything. I'm going to distract you. You know what? I'm not going to have, you're going to walk into the liturgy, you're going to try to focus, but I'm going to keep that mind somewhere else. I'm going to keep this mind running and working and thinking about something else. You're going to be physically in the church, but your mind's going to be somewhere else. Satan knows if we hears God's voice, that's going to be his end. We'll always follow him. And that's why he puts all his efforts to prevent us from listening to his voice. And he will do everything to distract us. Sometimes you get this urge, I'm going to read the Bible from now on, I'm going to dedicate this time. And then and I'm going to read at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, your phone starts ringing. Something happened at work, a very close friend calls you, or your favorite TV shows, oh, you know what, I'm going to want to talk to God after this TV show. One after the other, it's gone. Or it happens a lot in Holy Week. Holy Week, we're all like energized and fueled up, and we're all like, we want to live with God, and beautiful hymns and long prayers, and we all like lifted up spiritually. After Holy Week, we all go down. Why? Start eating and taking care of ourselves and distracted and do not go to the church as often. And Satan is so happy. Oh, you guys want to enjoy Holy Week? Go and enjoy Holy Week. I'll take care of you afterwards. And that's why in the third verse it says, forget your people also in your Father's house. How many times you were talking to your mom or your parent on your phone, and then you're in a very noisy place and you can't hear him? What do? You go out of that noisy place. What do you do? Exactly. If you're in a room, you go outside of that room. Why? So you can listen to him carefully. And that's what we need to do. We need to go out of our comfort zone. We need to quiet the noise from outside and from within. We need to have our own time with Christ. I'm going to shut everything down and I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to forget my people. I'm going to forget my cares, my worries, my lusts, my desires. I'm going to forget my career. I'm going to forget everything and put it aside just to focus, just to listen and incline my ear. Christ one time was giving a sermon on Peter's boat, and then after he was done, he told him, you know what, put out a little. Just take me in the sea a little bit inside. Because at the shore, it was so noisy and all the people were talking. He's like, hey, just put out a little. Let's just go inside a little bit. And then he started talking, and then afterwards, he's like, you know, launch out into the deep. Take me all the way inside. But when he went inside, it was quiet. It was only Christ and Peter. And only then, Peter was able to hear God's voice. And then Peter told him, God, I'm a sinner. Please leave my boat. Leave my ship. I do not deserve to have you in my boat, in this boat. I'm so sinful. He did not realize that on the shore. He did not realize that when he was a little bit further away from the shore. He only realized that when he went all the way deep. When he forgot about his people, his career, and about his Father's house. To hear him well, we need to quiet the noise from outside and from within. And then the last part of the verse, which is my favorite part. The king has desired your beauty. Well, God is great, but the problem is in me. Why would God care about me? I'm so sinful. I'm worthless. I tried so many times and I failed, so why would I care? But then God then tells you, you know what? Maybe you are sinful in your own eyes. Maybe you are worthless in your own eyes. Maybe you're so weak in your own eyes. Maybe you're a failure in your own eyes. But you're so beautiful in my eyes. You're my precious son. You're my precious daughter. I want to talk to you. I want you to listen to me. I want to delight you. The king has desired your beauty. And in Isaiah it says, I will make the covenant with you, the sure mercies of David. I will make an agreement with you. I will have mercy on you for sure. The same way I had mercies on David. But why did he mention David? Because David, in his youth, and when he became a king, he killed someone and he committed adultery. He was a sinful man. Yet God said, I will give you the mercies that I gave him. That sinful person, David, God links himself to him. He says, I am the son of David. God, you're linking yourself to a sinful man? Yes, I love him. He's my son. He's my precious son. He's so beautiful in my eyes. His heart was just like mine. He spent he was praying to me all the time. While he was shepherding, he was writing psalms. When he was a king, he was writing psalms. When he was sleeping, the tradition says that he had his harp hung on his bed. So whenever he wakes up, he would pull up his harp and start playing and writing psalms and singing psalms. And he left us that treasure of psalms written for us. He loved God. He was talking to him because he was hearing his voice in the first place. So no matter how you think of yourself, God's saying, you're so beautiful in my eyes. You're not a failure. You're not worthless. You're great. Yes, you're sinful, but that's your nature. I know that. And because your nature is like that, I will give you the sure mercies of David. But what does this all have to do with St. Mary? St. Mary was the perfect example. She was in the temple praying all day long and worshiping and serving God. That's why she had the sensitive ears. When the archangel gave her the message, she accepted it. She accepted it and she forgot about everything and she followed Christ. And then our beautiful church puts the psalm in front of us. It's like, okay, here's the psalm, here's what you need to do, and here's St. Mary that did everything in the psalm. Follow her footsteps. Ask her for help. She had those sensitive ears. She listened to God, and that's why God desired her beauty. It's going to be a nice exercise for all of us. Maybe whenever we read any verse from now on, we put our name instead of a dollar. For example, listen, O Sherif. Hear, O Sherif. Then everyone puts his name. That way we feel that God's talking to us personally. Whenever we walk to a church, we have to make this agreement with ourselves. I'm not going to walk out of church unless I take a personal message from God. And if you take that personal message, you're going to be so delighted. We are all living with God. But why do we just live with God? Why can't we get delighted in God in abundance? We have that treasure. Why do we have to waste it? We can't get that treasure. We can't be delighted in God if we hear His voice. His voice is so sweet. If you don't mind, I just want everyone to read the verse together, maybe 2 or 3 times so we can all memorize it and ponder about it for the rest of the week. And consider that this is our message for this week. Could you just read it together? Listen, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your own people also and your father's house. So the king will greatly desire your beauty, because he is your Lord. Worship him. Let's say it again. Listen, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your own people also and your father's house. So the king will greatly desire your beauty, because he is your Lord. Worship him. Last time I promise. Listen, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your people also and your father's house. So the king will greatly desire your beauty, because he is your Lord. Worship him, and glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.